What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon and I am still waiting for my Satyr, and today I'm here to tell you everything you need to know, at least for the most part, for Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End by Chuck Wendig. And the reason I say for the most part is because there is a lot of randomness that goes on in this book. There is a lot of convoluted things, so we're not really going to summarize the story, but I do want to talk about some major things that really stood out to me in this book. So obviously there's going to be spoilers in this video, but I do want to talk about how this book really stresses how important Jakku is, which is obviously where we open up in The Force Awakens. That's where Rey is, that's where Lord Santeca was. There's something going on with this planet, and something that was really interesting to me was that this planet used to be green 1,000 years prior, and now it's totally dead because of all of the mining that went on there, which is just really interesting. And there is a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on in Star Wars. There are a lot of planets that just completely die off because of mining and because of what the Empire or other organizations do to these planets. So that's really cool. But there's also really cool because there's this thing called the Observatory here, which is full of all of these Sith artifacts, and Darth Sidious, aka good old Palpy himself, was doing something here. This is actually where he finds the boy who grows up to become Gallius Rax, who kind of takes over the Empire for this final battle. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, and there are actually a lot of characters from Jakku, and there is this kind of instilled mindset in them that they are nobodies from nowhere, and they have to make a name for themselves, and they have to rise up and become something bigger. So there is something interesting going on there, and everything in this book suggests to me that I feel like we could be going back to this planet in episode 9. I do think that anyway, just because there are some loose ends that could be tied up with Rey. I feel like her finally closing the book on her past and moving forward rests in her maybe confronting it once again on Jakku. And plus, I just really want Kylo Ren to be there too, so he could give us a famous line about sand. That would be great. He could even say that he loves sand. I don't care. I just love my Skywalker boys who hate sand. I just think it's hilarious. But I feel like there is going to be some sort of importance here, so we might be going back there in 9. If we don't, I feel like we might revisit it some other way, maybe through an animated series or one of these TV shows or something, but there's just more going on here. Another big thing at the end of this book tells you how the remnant that would later become the First Order kind of arises. So at the end of the book, at the end of the battle, the New Republic does win, but they don't completely take out the First Order. The leadership is pretty much gone, but there's this thing called the contingency that Palpatine had been planning for. That's kind of what Gallius Rax was here for, and this was to make sure that the Empire lives on. So even though they have peace treaties and signings and the Empire is going to go away, there is still a remnant left, and they go off into the unknown regions in search of something. Palpatine had a huge interest in wild space in the unknown regions. That's why he employed Thrawn, because he had great knowledge of that. So that's where they go. They go out in search of something, and that's where the First Order is basically going to rise up. I think when they go out there, that's where they're going to find Snoke. Snoke is already a presence in Empire's End. He was actually a little bit of a presence in Life Debt, just with Leia. He's already starting to prey on a young Ben Solo because he is seeking out that Skywalker line. We know this from the Last Jedi novelization. So I think when they go out there, that's what they're going to find. I don't think we would revisit that kind of stuff in episode 9, but we could see that come through in more books, or even with the new Resistance TV show that's actually already out by the time that this video comes out. So I think that's interesting, and I definitely think that's something to watch about how this remnant goes out into wild space and reemerges as the First Order. The final thing that I think is really interesting is the fact that Ben Solo was born during the peace signings between the New Republic and the Empire. So this was the Empire finally giving in, we're surrendering, all of that kind of stuff. He was born during this, and he is described as this bright ray of hope in the midst of all of the turmoil that had been going on, in the midst of all of this fallout of war. And every book that mentions baby Ben Solo describes him in this way, so I'm sorry, but we are moving towards Ben Solo redemption. We are moving towards learning more about Ben Solo, learning more about his fall. Everything in this book and everything I've read about baby Ben Solo, it's about how he is this bright spot in the midst of all of this darkness, and yet there is a shadow that lingers over him. And who is that shadow? It's probably Snoke. That's pretty obvious in this book, that there is just some presence that's already preying on Leia. It's already preying on Ben Solo, so the shadow has been with him his entire life, and that is unbelievably tragic, and I really cannot wait to see where that's gonna go in 9. I think it's going towards redemption. I don't know, some people have other thoughts. I'd love to know yours down in the comments down below, but for the most part, that's the stuff that I found really interesting and the really big takeaways from this book. There are obviously a lot more things going on here, so if you want to talk about any of that, you can fill it in down in the comments down below. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe so you can talk books with me every week. That is everything I got for today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!